Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome into Vulnerable Conversations with Aadfedbea. I first want to ask you guys to please bear with me today. I am trying to get over a really sore throat. But when I say I just could not get around delaying this conversation, making this video to talk to you guys, it's so funny. Even this morning, I was woken up to two small little bluebirds tapping on my window. And anytime birds start coming to visit me, I know that's my ancestors, and I know that they trying to confirm and push for me to do what I need to do. I've been knowing that I needed to talk about some of these things for a while or open up an avenue to have these spaces of vulnerability with you guys, but I just been trying to figure out the best way to get it done. Okay, so you'll see me holding the mic here today because I can't quite project like I want to. But nevertheless, let's talk about it. So today I am going to be talking to you about some of my personal experiences, but the point of all of this is for you guys to realize the importance of never ignoring signs and synchronicities from God and never ignoring your intuition, because sometimes there are a lot of dynamics and aspects of things that are hidden to us, okay? Always in divine timing, we will know what we need to know. We will find out what is relevant. But sometimes it's just important to always be willing to move, to go, to change, to do whenever God is pushing us to do so. So, at the time that I'm recording this video, okay, it's a timeless message. It'll find you when you need to hear it the most. But at the time where I am recording this video, it is 2026. And on March 1st, which is in a few days from now, is my birthday, okay? And I will be 34 years old. Now, when I was 31, I found out that my entire life was a lie. The person that I thought was my grandfather was actually my father. The people who raised me, the ones who pretended to be my mother and father, was actually my sister and brother-in-law. All of the people that I grew up calling my aunts and uncles were actually my siblings. And all of my cousins that I grew up with were actually my nieces and nephews. Now, my actual mother and her parents were murdered at the hands of these same family members, okay? Now, mind you, if I just found this out when I was 31 and I'm about to be 34 now, okay, this ought to let you know how fresh things are for me. But as hurtful as it was to figure this out or find out about it, it also was one of the hugest confirmations, right? Of all of the times in my life where I had to, again, make these sudden movements, sudden changes, sometimes not even realizing why God was telling me to do certain things or go certain places or don't go certain places, right? Because it was a matter of life and death. Now, a little bit of my backstory. Growing up, I grew up in a Christian family. My father, and I'm going to call the people what I know them to be. Mind you, I knew him as my grandfather originally. All my life, I thought that was my grandfather, but it's my actual father. My father is a pastor. He's still out there lying and playing in people's faces now, okay? But he was a pastor. All of my siblings were in church. They had some sort of position, some sort of capacity. I grew up going to church, 4 times a week: Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Sunday morning, and Sunday nights, right? We were always in church. It was always a whole lot of Bible thumping, a whole lot of beating people across the head, abusing people with religion and, so called moralistic values and things like that, right? But I also have shared with you guys in previous videos that I lived a very abusive life. Now, I grew up all my life wanting this sense of acceptance and love because I always felt like it just wasn't there. The only person who truly, truly loved me unconditionally was the woman that I knew as my grandmother. Now, mind you, she passed away before this information was revealed. They hid it from her as well too. My father knew what was going on. All of my siblings knew my entire life. Like they knew from the moment that my mom was pregnant with me after my father molested her and I came about, and they wanted to hide this information, right? Because he was busy trying to play pastor and play holier than thou. So they were threatening my mother to get rid of me, before I was born. They told her that they were going to murder her, if she went through with giving birth to me. Um, so my mother was a very, very powerful woman. She was very spiritual, looked just like me. Everything that you see me doing, sharing my gifts, healing people, helping people, she was the same. So were my grandparents. And about 6 months after I was born and brought into this world, um, they were killed on purpose in a car accident. Um, Again, a lot of the details I'll tell you guys along the way, or you'll see it in the book, okay? Um, but the point being is, I honestly was only kept alive as long, when I was a child. I was only kept alive because these people benefited so greatly from my inheritances, okay? My mother and my grandparents were from West Africa. They were very, very important, powerful tribal leaders. They had a lot of things going for them. They had a lot of things that were generational, well, let's say it was along the lines of generational wealth, right, in store for me as well, too. So, because I was essentially kidnapped as a child after they, killed my mother and my grandparents, a lot of the things that were supposed to be inherited to me, the family just took it. They stole it all. They benefited from it all. And a lot of my siblings pretty much they benefited from a lot of these things because they were the secret keepers, right? It was almost, I guess you could call it like blackmail, right? I won't tell, everybody what you did. We won't tell mom, my grandmother, we won't tell her, what happened or what's going on, right? But as long as we are able to live and eat and have a somewhat decent life based off of what we can gain from these inheritances, life insurance policies, all types of things, right? But even though there was still a beneficial factor that came to these people by keeping me alive, it still did not negate the fact that there were a lot of attempts made on my life. Throughout my life growing up, I was poisoned so many times. Um, they allowed people to do all types of sexual acts to me, just nasty, dirty things, right? These were also people who played with dark magic, okay? And if you know anything about that, then you know how grotesque some of those rituals and things can be. So they did a lot of rituals um, over my body, over my energy. They sold me to other people. My father was connected to Masonic Freemasons. Okay, if you know about that too, then You already know. If you don't know, look it up. Okay. You may not find a lot of information, but ask somebody, because somebody will know and will tell you how those people get down. Okay. When we talk about the people in the world who literally get away with murder, yeah. Okay. So there were a lot of things that they did because they knew the power that my energy held, right? You remember how I told you guys too in a previous video that when I was little, the same gifts of prophecy or seeing things, the visionary, right? I had that since I was a little child. So there were a lot of things that were done to me. Even in the home that I lived in, the person who was, actually my brother-in-law that played my father, honey, my introduction to that type of, I'm trying to be careful of the words that I use because I don't want them to flag my video, but that type of pedophilic behavior, yes, all the things that happened throughout my life. And this was a continuous cycle. There were so many spells that were done on me. There were so many attempts on my life. There were car accidents that were set in place. I would be driving cars and the brakes would just go out, or I'll be driving down the highway going, 80 miles per hour, and my car would just cut off and the steering wheel will lock up. I used to work at a sporting goods store, right? And people were allowed to bring in, weapons into the store because we had a gun counter, and people would come to get their guns cleaned and repaired. But before that, they could go back to the counter, they would have to go to customer service, check in the weapon, show, that it was empty, unloaded, and then we would tag it. And a guy came in one day, I was working customer service, and there was a little barrel thing. I'm going to see if I can find a picture. If I can find a picture, I'm going to insert it in here. But there was like this little barrel thing that's supposed to be like a bullet stopper, right? And they would stick their gun in. We would tell them, don't pull the trigger. Just pretty much open the chamber. Show us that there's no, bullet that's in the chamber. Of course, no clip or whatever. And then once we saw it was clear, we gave them clearance to go to the back. The guy came in and he was like, yeah, he had a sawed off rifle. And he was like, yeah, I found this gun in my attic and I just wanted to blah, 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 blah. He was lying. He was sent in to take me out. And so when I told him to stick his gun in the bullet stopper, right? He pulled the trigger and there was a bullet, and the gun went off in the store. Now, mind you, this bullet stopper, we learned about it in training and we saw videos of how it worked, but it's one of those things to where you don't want to test it. Okay. You don't want to find out whether or not it works, by somebody sitting there actually pulling the trigger. But I say because God was always protecting me, right? My mother, before she passed away, she made a deal with God to make sure that I was 100% fully protected throughout the entirety of my life, because she knew the purpose that I would serve to this day as a healer. She knew that they would try to take me out because I was the biggest secret, right? But the bullet stopper, it stopped the bullet, right? I was standing directly behind it. And I'm telling y'all that if that would have went the way that those people planned, my family, my own blood planned for it to go, a few days later, they would have been burying me. Okay. All types of things, right? They even paid people that knew me. The marriage that I tell you guys that I was in, I found out after, way after, divorcing this person, that even when he went to them to ask for my hand in marriage, they told him then all of this information that I just found out 3 years ago. And they hired him. They paid him money to marry me and to kill me. And I tell people all the time, right? I don't have a weapon now, right? It's back in America. I don't live in America anymore. It's back in America, right? But when I was there, I had a 9mm. And the two times that I pulled it on the person, it was on that man that I was married to. Because I, even without knowing, right, whatever deal that he had signed with them, even without knowing that he knew the secret, of who I was and that these people weren't, this and that to me, I knew he was trying to take me out. I could see it in his eyes. There were even, there was one time where he actually had put his hands on me, drugged me out of the house by my feet, you know what I'm saying? Like kicking, biting, and screaming. And he was the only person that I had to pull the weapon on. I never had to use it because he was really a a very weak man, right? As are all abusers, as we know, right? They do all of that rah 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 to whoever they feel like they can manipulate into believing that they are rough, tough, and something to be afraid of. But as soon as he saw that, pointing at him, the whole story changed, right? But I knew once it came out and the information was confirmed, it made so much sense why, those moments happen where I could see him trying to, build up an argument or hitting the wall beside me and things like that. It was almost like he would just go into this whole rage, right? As though he wanted to provoke me into giving him a reason to take me out. And it was crazy because I should have known that something was off, because when I tell you, you know how like when you get married or engaged, right? Usually your family will come to the engagement. They'll give you wedding gifts and things like that. Tell me why in my proposal, nobody in my family showed up except for my sister, the one who raised me and pretended to be my mother. At my wedding, there was only my sister and her husband, and then a few of his family members that were there. We had a destination wedding, and I had a couple of my friends, but nobody in my family came through. And at this point, I'm so used to them treating me so oddly and doing me so wrong the majority of my life that, I just didn't think nothing of it other than, oh, I'm not worthy enough for them to show up for me in that way. And so even after, right, we, went through the divorce, and I told you guys that story too, when he presented it to me, it was never supposed to be me saying okay and just being done with it. Like, no, I was supposed to fight. I was supposed to, stay around so that he could finish the job that he was hired to do, which was to kill me. And because he was contractually married to me, he also would have benefited from my death, just like the rest of them. When I tell y'all, literally within 1 year, I can't remember what year it was, maybe around like 2016, 17, I had several of my family members come to me or text me and say, hey, what's your social security number? Because I want to put you down as a beneficiary on my insurance at work. But the whole time they were plotting to kill me, and everybody was supposed to take out a different insurance policy so that they could benefit thousands of dollars off of my death. Okay. So looking back on things, right? There was always a little something, right? A little nudge, a little this and that, or a split moment action or reaction that came along with each one of these attempts so that, they could not and would not be successful in taking me out altogether. Taking me out altogether. And so much so, even when we talk about like how I got to the point of living outside of the country, I've had to leave so much behind. I've had to start over from nothing so many times because these people worked overtime. Literally, it was all they did to take everything I had or put me in some sort of mode to where I would either starve and die, or something would happen to me being out by myself and alone, or it would be so bad that I would eventually come back to them and then they could finish doing what they wanted to do for me. But every time it's like I got that opportunity to leave, or God was just telling me, I'm not going to tell you all the details of how this is going to work out, but I need you to leave. I need you to go. Every single time I was obedient to God. And as many times as it would have seemingly made more sense to go backwards or, you know, honestly just give up altogether, it's like I never could do that. Even when we talk about me leaving my hometown, I grew up, between Tennessee and Mississippi. Um, and I spent the majority of my life there. In 2021, randomly, God was like, move to California. Now, mind you, right before I left, I was on my homeless thing. I was living in my car. Because after the marriage, right, when I left that house or got put out of my own, house and space by that man, or by that boy, should I say, because that wasn't a man, you guys. But um I was living in my car because it's just like I don't really know what to do. My family never presented, anything that made me feel safe enough to go home, right? Because most people, if your marriage don't work out, the first thing you do is go back to your mama or your daddy house, or you go stay with a relative, right? Or somebody that you trust. But I had nobody that I trusted. Even before I, married this man, I was already in this energy of having, been living on my own or trying to figure it out, because my sister had put me out over some petty things, right? On the same type of tip. We want to put you out. We want to, cut off all your resources. We want to pretty much starve you out to where you have to come back either begging, or you get out there and you waste away to nothing. So that wasn't really even an option to go towards them for safety, because they didn't provide that either. So it was my first time just being like, okay, it's all on me now. It's all on, and I'm not even gonna say on me, it's all on God, because that's how I looked at it. I'm like, God, I don't know what you're doing. Even when I told y'all before, I had the conversation with God, all of this hectic life, attempts on my life, not being able to trust anybody, always being sick because somebody trying to poison me, trying to do this, do that. I'm tired of that. So whatever I have to do something better, or to get to the space in life where I can just live, where I can be around people that actually like me, where I could be around people that I can trust, right? Tell me what I have to do. And so the first step, God was like, okay, move to California. Mind you, I had never, never, ever, ever in my life been to California. Really hadn't even thought about, California. Yes, I was an artist. I went to school for music, had a degree, all those things, right? But it was never an interest to me to be like, oh, I want to go to Hollywood or LA or anything like that. No. But I was like, okay, God, cool. Like, I'll do that, right? So at that point in 2021, when I made that move, right, and I took that leap of faith, when I tell you the snowball started rolling, honey, and everything started getting exposed. Now, mind you, I just got done telling you guys how there were a lot of things that were, stolen from me, things that I was supposed to inherit. My mom, my grandparents had things set up to where I was never supposed to struggle. So the life that I lived took such a toll on me, you know, energetically, because it just literally wasn't designed for me, right? So while I was still living in, my hometown, it wasn't strange, right? Nothing looked strange paperwork wise to see that I had, houses in my name, land, or this bank account, or this, or this, or this, right? All these things that were in my name. But what became a flag to the people that were in the offices, right? These auditors and things like that, was when I moved to California. So right before I made the move, I ended up getting this contract, position with this school to where I was teaching these students. And because this was an official contract, when tax time came around, I had an entire W-2 that showed all the dates in which I was working there. It showed that I was actually present in California. So imagine somebody is still in Memphis, right? Memphis, Tennessee, still doing things in my name, still paying for things, making payments or accepting payments in my name. But then at the same time, same dates, right? You have me showing up on my end, presenting this W 2, filing my taxes in a whole different state, right? Halfway across, across the country. And so whoever was auditing, these taxes and paperwork and all these things, right? And I'm not even gonna say that it was just the auditor, it was always God. Right, back to the point, always when God tells you to go and move and do, even when you don't understand how things are going to work out or whatever, please do it anyway. Okay, so God allowed there to be one person to see, like, okay, now how is she filing taxes through the state of California, but also making payments or doing this or doing that in Tennessee as well too? Something's not right here. And from then on, the investigators started getting involved. They started seeing, everything that was going on. They started putting all the pieces together about what happened to my mother, how my family members were responsible for her murder, my grandparents' murder, all the things started coming together. And a lot of y'all too, you're going to end up hearing about this on the news because it's going to be a big story. It's a lot of things that are still in courts right now. But when I say these people are going to get arrested, because not only did they do these things to me, they did things to other people too. A lot of those members at my father's church were killed at his hands. They did things to them. They took out insurance policies on them. They made money off of these deaths. All of the money and things, inheritances that they stole from me, they cleaned a lot of that money through the church and things like that. Horrible people. Horrible people. But the one thing that also went along with the instruction when God told me to move, he told me not to tell nobody. Nobody. And that's an odd thing, right? Because usually you will at least let, somebody in your family know if you about to hop across country or this and this and this. Nope, I sure didn't. I may have had one friend, right, who knew about it because we were like this. We were like super, super, super cool, right? But outside of that, nobody knew until after I had, made the move, right? So if they would have known, of course, they would have tried to either stop me from going or made some sort of adjustments, because then they would have realized the same thing that that auditor realized. We can't keep doing things in her name or, setting things up as though, mail is supposed to come to her here in this city, this state, but she's living somewhere else. So that one small motion of obedience to God was literally what saved my life for good. And it was the beginning of me finding out the truth that God had been telling these people to tell me. Tell me the truth. Tell her what y'all did. Tell her what's really going on and what's been going on for years here. So step by step, when I say these people were just evil, they did so many things, right? They falsely accused me of a lot of things. They had people, investigating me illegally, following me, watching me, all types of things. But it all ended up working out in my favor because, number one, I am who I say I am. It doesn't matter how much you try to criminalize me. It doesn't matter what lie you come up with that you pull out of your ass, out of your back. It doesn't matter, right? You could tell this person, oh, I want you to investigate her because she did this, she did this, she did that. I did none of those things. And the more that this investigator began to look into me, they realized that, yeah, the math is not math. And what y'all are telling me that she is doing or has done, not matching at all. All we see is a young lady going to work every day. And mind you, even in California, I was still living out of my car. I woke up every morning. I purchased the Planet Fitness gym membership, right? So that I could go and utilize the facilities. They had the showers and locker rooms there. so I can keep myself clean, get ready every morning. But I was getting up early, had to be in the classroom by 8 a.m., worked all throughout the day until 3 certain days, even later, because I was also teaching private lessons for kids. I would go to another school after working all day, and then I would sleep in my car, that night, park somewhere near the school, and do it all over again. So imagine you were an investigator and somebody told you that I'm out here stealing, killing, and destroying. But all you watching me do every day is sit in my car and, exist and eat fast food and this and this. Or maybe if I get enough money for my paycheck, then I'll get an Airbnb so I can sleep in the bed, and not be so tired, right? No, wasn't doing any of the things that the people said. And so once these investigators start figuring that out, guess what they did? They started investigating my family, the people who sent them towards me. And like I said, that snowball just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because they were the ones that had a bunch of skeletons in their closet. They were the ones who had a bunch of blood on their hands. They were the ones who were always attempting on my life and the lives of others. And it's one thing, right, when nobody suspects you, right? Because again, on the outside looking in, these are the most holier than thou people. And some people, ask me like, oh, do you still go to church and this and this and this? No, babe, I don't. Church is one of the biggest scams. Religion is one of the biggest scams ever. And I say that whole spiel for another video. But all I'm saying is my father and my family are not the only ones hiding behind this religion, hiding behind this mask of, oh, we love God, we serve God, we show up and we, go to church and we do this and we do that. If you just knew them as that, you would never believe these things. But all it took was for somebody to really look into it and see what was going on to know, like, oh, y'all built this church on top of death. Y'all built this church on top of skeletons and bones and curses and everything else. So as they found that out, they did what needed to be done. And it went from me just being protected by God to now these same investigators were protecting me. Because once they began to uncover what was being done to me, and mind you, it's so crazy because these were things that were going on between 2021 and 22. I'll say even just the end of 2020 as well too. I did not find out. It was not confirmed to me until 2023. All along, right? When people were figuring out like, so if they were making all of these attempts on this lady's life, how did she move around it, right? She just out here by herself. She's living in her car. She's sleeping in random parking lots. She's literally, how could somebody escape that, right? When you have people that are deliberately hiring people to come find me, to take me out, how could you possibly have escaped that? God, 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 obeying God, following my discernment, right? What I always tell y'all about, when you get those little urges, those feelings, they are not to be ignored. When God is trying to show you something about somebody, because mind you, I have met people that were hired to unalive me. And to me, they were just random strangers. And these people knew that, okay, if we come to her as one of the family members, there's a chance that she may know what's going on, or, it may be suspicious because y'all have treated me so bad all my life. So more than likely, I'm going to suspect that if I see you're trying to do the same thing, even if I don't know at this point what's going on. But at minimum, I don't trust you. But the likelihood of somebody meeting me, right? Or it could have even been like a man trying to come towards me. Oh, I'm interested in you and getting to know you in a romantic way or whatever. Every single time that happened, Guess what happened? Guess what else happened? That person fell so in love with me, right? That they couldn't complete the job. It was like, as crazy as it sounds, right? When you think about a hitman, right? A hitman is hired to do one thing and one thing only. And usually this is a person that will keep their feelings out of it, because it's like, if I'm getting paid to take you out, that is what it is. But imagine God working so strategically for me and with me that he allowed every person who has met me, right, to see me only for who I am. So much so to where they moralistically didn't even feel right completing the task. Every person that was sent towards me, every hitman, did not do anything to me, but become my friend. Crazy, right? I promise you, like, my life is literally like a movie. And I'm not lying to you about any detail of the story. But no matter what connection that I may have formed with that person, right? Even not knowing who they were or why they came into my life, I'm just thinking it's a stranger. Like, oh God, you sent me somebody who looking out for me, or somebody who was just sent to help me during this time, right? Or even just to be a light or a bit of joy or a distraction from how hard things were for me. Struggle, when I say like no money, no house, no nothing. Nothing, y'all. Most days when I was living out of my car, the way that I ate, I was either scraping change that you will find, in your door, in your cup holders or under the seats. Or I was going on different apps, like when you download like a rewards app or something for a fast food restaurant. Once you become a rewards member, put your phone number in, they'll give you like a free appetizer or a free fry or a free, whatever. A lot of days, that's how I was surviving. The few times that I, was able to ask, random people for money, can you help me? Can you order some groceries from me? Whatever you can do, that was cool. But for the majority of the time, I was either hungry, very hungry, not knowing what to do, how to do, whatever, or I was just finding the most, random and scarce ways to survive. So somebody coming into my life being, nice to me was a breath of fresh air. And mind you, I always had my morals about me now. I wasn't out here selling myself. Never did that. Never did that. People tried to offer. I had people to come towards me as well too that were clearly, they didn't have the right intentions, right? And, oh, I'll help you, but you got to come stay with me and sleep with me and this and this. Don't worry about it, honey. I will be in my car tonight. Because I depended on God. I never lost focus. Even when I made the agreement with God, I know it's going to be hard. I'm telling you to give it all to me at once. Let me go through it. Let me feel it all, whatever. Because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life suffering like this. I stayed focused on that. So it was never an option for me to sell out or sell myself to, make this process easier for myself. Never gave that. But in some shape, form, or fashion, God always covered me. From the places I was led to go, to drive, to park every night. From the people that I spoke to and I told them, my story, what was going on and things like, everything was strategic. Every single thing. So if you are in a position now, even if it's not as, your story is not as dire as mine is. For some of you, it may be, or it could have been, right? And this is just God confirming for you that, okay, there's a strategy always to whatever it is that we go through. Understand that the underlying support, right, is always going to be rooted in your willingness to be obedient to God. And just like you don't go to school and Every time the teacher tells you to do something, you always, why should I do it? What's going to happen? This and this and this. You don't do God like that. And even when God has given you an instruction, don't go backwards, my love. I've been doing these educational videos on setting your intentions, right? And standing firm, standing on business, because for real, you literally don't know whether your life or somebody else's life depends upon you being obedient or you sticking to what it is that you know is going to be right for you. So for whoever needed to hear this today, please, my love, trust God. If you are praying for certain things or certain instruction, don't accept the instruction based off of the level of easiness or convenience that it brings you. No, do what you are led to do, no matter what. No matter what. I am a living witness to this day to tell you that obedience to God saved my life. Obedience to God revealed one of the biggest secrets of my life, which not only, was something else that, was a life-saving thing, right? Because my own family was trying to take me out, but it was a thing that saved me by way of allowing me to heal. Because rejection from people that you love dearly and not understanding why you are so rejected or why people resent you so heavily. But then when you finally get, the clarity to be like, oh, I was the outside child. Oh, I was the ruining, right, of your reputation. Of course you're going to treat me like this. Oh, y'all hate me. So of course y'all wasn't ever going to accept me, right? It was never me. It was never my sense of unworthiness. I was always worthy. But y'all were just guilty and evil and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, that allowed me to be able to heal through that. And not only did it allow me to be able to heal through it, but it also allowed me to continue to keep a moralistic standard about myself. I never tried to get my lick back, no matter what these people did to me. I never did. It wasn't my character. It was never meant for me to become them. It was never meant for me to take on that evilness that they embodied. But what that also meant is that it allowed God complete freedom to take these people out. Do you hear me? When I say suffering, if you want to know the definition of suffering, you're going to look in the dictionary and you're going to see my family's pictures and the man that I married and his mama and all these other people too that joined along, because my family paid a lot of people that were even close to me to be a part of this. All of these people, if you look at them now, they toe up, toe down. They're broke, about to be homeless. If they haven't, already fallen into that level of punishment now, but I guarantee you they will never fare as well as I did through it all. And mind you, that was one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through. All of those first 31 years of my life, I wish there was another word I can use, but all I can say it was hard. It was hard. It was very hard. But was I still strategically protected, led, and covered throughout it all? I surely was. So I survived it. But them, on the other hand, they're not faring the same. And everything that they wanted from me, God is making sure that they experience that times 10 for themselves. Because they had no business. Starting with my mother, they had no business. You would have done better. My father would have done better just admitting, like, okay, I cheated, I did this, I stepped outside of my marriage, but no. They did all of that to protect an image. They did all of that to play around with people's souls and their belief in God. Because how dare you have so much blood on your hand and still get up and claim to be, preaching the word of God each and every day, each and every week. It don't work like that. And God is getting to the point to where he's disassociating with these people who have played so long in his name. A lot of y'all gonna be shocked because your pastor gonna get exposed too. But like I said, I'm gonna save that conversation for another day and for another video. But now, and even when we join in the other conversations that I've had with you guys about why, I am so strict in the way that I deal with my relationships, why I am so methodical in certain things, right? And why it's easy for me to see certain characteristics in people and understand that this can fester into something else way worse. If you lie to me about something little, you'll lie to me about my whole life. And I grew up as a child seeing them lie about certain things or watching my family talk about the church members and things like that. And then they'll go into the church, hey, I love you. You so sweet. And I didn't get that as a child, right? I just didn't, because it wasn't my heart. I wasn't built that way. But I'm like, y'all will fake and flodge and lie about the dumbest of things, not knowing the biggest lie was me the whole time, you know? But when a person wants to be honest with you, when they want to be vulnerable with you, they'll do that too. Which is why that's all I allow in my life. If you tell me something, you got to keep your word. And if for some reason you are not able to keep your word, you're going to have to be man or woman enough to admit that as well too. Otherwise, guess what I'm going to think you are? It don't matter. I'm finna cut you off. Because as I am rehabilitating myself and my nervous system, right? Imagine that, right? Imagine literally thinking like, oh, yeah, this is my auntie, this is my uncle, this is my granddaddy, this is my blah, 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 blah. And nobody who is who they say, and they have gone so far to be like, oh, you look just like this person. You look just like this person. And I wasn't even related to them. The man who was, living in the household with us and claiming to be my father, they used to be like, oh, you look so much like your daddy's side, and this dad ain't my daddy. I don't have no blood relation to that man. But the fact that these people would go so far to protect this lie, that's insane to me. No, it really is insanity, but for real, it's insane to me. So when we talk about why it's never okay to ignore your discernment, things like this is the reason why. There were so many times that there would have been a huge chance that I wouldn't be sitting here right now in this moment being able to tell you this story because I was already out of here. If God had not intervened in some sort of way, if God had not given me the split second instruction to do this, to go left, to go right, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crucial. It's that crucial, you guys. Don't get so comfortable in what you think is your normal that you are willing to ignore what God is telling you to do. Because whether you know it or not, it can be life or death. So I'm going to end this conversation here today. I'm sure that I will have more to tell you guys because there is so much more, so many of these stories that branch off into, stories of their own when we talk about each one of these attempts or how people played in my face. But today, I hope this at least helps you understand on a deeper level why obedience is crucial. And at all times, no exceptions. I love you guys. And I'll talk to you again soon.